Welcome to Let Me Be Clear. My name is Ignacio Rodriguez, Principal Architect at IR Architects. We are a luxury design firm that specializes in custom residences here in the city of Los Angeles.
Alrighty, so here we are another week with Let Me Be Clear. Today we want to dive in a little bit deeper into consultants, diving in, understanding that it's a big machine. There's a lot of people that are involved in the puzzle to execute, and so let's just dive right in.
Yeah, so consultants, right? Great topic. Each project is unique into the consultants that you're going to need, but you're definitely going to need consultants. And it's important to understand that because all those folks are folks you're going to have to hire. As an owner, you're going to have to bring them on. They become part of the design process, part of the process to help your house get built. And ultimately, they help you with, how smooth the project goes. A lot of times, we hear clients or contractors like, oh, it's okay, I'll manage it on the field. And that's true to some extent, but that's called design build. And so when you're approaching a project that way, it could be a little bumpy. It could definitely have some cost overruns because effectively they're just going to figure it out on the field.
Just all finesse.
Yes. And then for the budgets, they're just going to throw a dart into the
Right.
wall, and hopefully they hit the budget.
So you really got to
correctly.
map out everything A to Z.
Yeah, exactly. You really do. And it's important that you bring on the people at the right time when you need them, because they have influence on how the project gets completed, right? Like to start a project, like when we first started with the fire rebuilds, initially they were like, no surveys are needed. You're fine. Just, build within that. The reality is a survey is like 100% critical. The survey is established by the surveyor, and they establish your property lines. And almost 100% of the time where the fences are, where the sidewalks are,
It's not actually what's going on.
No.
Yeah.
And so, but, in neighborhoods like the Palisades that were built a long time ago, they were pretty much established, so to speak, like taken as that's the property line.
Right.
But now that everything's gone, you now need to know exactly where your property line is so you set walls correctly.
Right. Buildable space almost.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so like we've noticed like on many projects where like the wall is, like, oh yeah, that was our property wall, but the property line was like 2.5 feet beyond it. That's just where it was.
Right.
So they thought their yard was that size. And we've had it go vice versa, where like a project's like, oh yeah, no, that's my property line where that wall is. And you get the survey and it's like, oh no, you're like 2 feet in or 18 inches in. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but it's a lot, especially when your lot's 6,000 square feet. 2 feet is just a tremendous amount of square footage.
Adds up.
And so you need a surveyor, right? That's step number one. Step number two is your soils engineer. They're the ones who bless where the house can be built. And like it sounds crazy, but you can't just build a house anywhere on the ground. You can't just do that. You dig your foundations, they come out, they review the bottom of the footing and establish if that dirt is good enough to build on or if you have to go deeper. Very important step.
Right.
Nobody else can do it but the soils engineer. And the city relies on the soils engineer to come out and inspect the bottom of footings just to make sure that it all looks good.
So is that kind of step one?
That's step one.
Okay.
Like before you start even designing, that's step one. And then from there, once you have those two items, obviously you have your architect that gets started on the design process. And, myself as an architect, right, we're going to take the ideas from the client. We're going to put them on paper, create this design, this beautiful design that the client loves. And then from there is when all the consultants really get started. That's when you're going to start bringing in your landscape architects, your interior designers, all your engineers, civil, structural, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, on some projects, lighting design, and then specialty trades. So for some houses that have, like somebody says, hey, Ignacio, I want a really smart home. Okay, well, then that means we're going to have to bring in a low voltage home automation specialist consultant that is going to give us all the parameters to make this house perform the way the client wants. Or like if they want a specific theater in their house, well, we need to bring in a theater design consultant that's going to literally tell you how big the screen could be, where all the speakers go, how far the chairs have to be. And so all of these we kind of take it for granted. Like I think in general, contractors, architects have a good idea of all of these trades, but the reality
you need
is
a specialist.
They're specialists for a reason, and each project is different. And so
for sure. Do you ever run into clients that just say, okay, I only need an architect like yourself and then a contractor and that's it? And then it's like a harsh reality.
That happens a lot. And so, yes, run into it a lot. And the reality is, right, like, again, not every project requires the list of consultants, right? But here's what I can tell you. If you don't have it drawn, then nobody knows what it costs. And nobody knows what your expectation is of that item or that trade. So they're just going to guess. And, people that have been doing this a long time that are really good will guess some good numbers and be relatively close to that. But the problem is the owner has probably never done this. So they have no idea when somebody says like, oh yeah, HVAC, we could do that for 120 grand. But what does that mean, right? Does that mean it has dehumidifying? Does that mean it has HEPA filters? Does that mean that each room is individually controlled? Does that mean that you have a variety of zones? What does it actually mean?
Right.
And they just threw a number of 120, and that's the number that's in the budget, and hoping that that's going to be good. And so that's the risk to not hiring a consultant, that you don't really know what you're going to get.
Yeah, where do you really see things start to get bumpy in the process?
Yeah, so it's
consistently.
Exactly. Great question. And that's usually in the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing side, because they're not really required by the city unless you are doing some sort of a pump system or you're putting a really massive ventilation system. You don't really, or in the power side, if you go above 400 amps, you can kind of just figure it out on the field. But where it starts to get really bumpy is as the projects start to go into construction and clients start to really look at the drawings and like, you know what, I do want heated floors in the bathroom and I would like to have a steam shower.
Some last minute decisions.
Yeah, and like, it would be cool. Could we put some outdoor patio heaters and in that bar, I do want to have a beautiful big wine fridge and a dedicated, all these dedicated circuits.
And that kind of goes back to the sequencing of having the right people when, right? And how does that apply to making sure that the sequencing is intact while also like not destroying the creativity through the project?
Yeah, and so for us, right, we always love to advise like, hey, we're at this stage, now we need to bring on consultants.
Right.
Sometimes clients will say like, Ignacio, let's just proceed. We'll bring them on in a little bit. Let's just proceed. And it's like, okay, we can and we will, but you're getting in a position where you're taking 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And in the long run, it ends up delaying the project. Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's just because, you start getting like, once the project really gets going past the design side, now you're starting to really start seeing a lot of decisions being made, like, hey, we need to hire a civil engineer, structural engineer, all these engineers.
And suddenly,
it starts to add up and the numbers. But we explained to clients, like, right, that's part of, like in the beginning page, we kind of advise you on all the people that we need as part of the budget that we kind of forecasted. And we need to bring these people on. Like, I feel like sometimes clients have like 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Like, I'm doing this, but maybe I want to stop or maybe I want to pause. But the reality is once we're going, we're going.
Yeah.
Like, we got on a plane and this plane's going to New York.
Yeah. And
we're not really stopping at all these different airports. Like, we're going straight to New York. And so that's what becomes really important is like just following the sequence like through and through. It'll help you with delays. It'll help you keep the project moving like smoothly. And then it'll help us be able to bid the project when all the drawings are going out for city submittal, like all the drawings are complete. And we're able to then give it to a contractor and then he can go price it.
Right. Efficiently,
accurately, so that when the drawings come back from the city, we have a nice budget and we can see like, oh, okay, this is where we're at. But without those consultants, it's just a guess.
Right. And then as an architect, do you have go-to like engineers as a random example that you go to, or how do you assign the people?
Great. Yeah, it's a great question, right? Absolutely. Yeah, we have tried and proven engineers that we have worked with, that we have great relationships with, that, there's a change that happens. Client decided to move something. They're not going to nickel and dime you. Everything's, like we do so much business together that
Right.
I need you to pick up this revision and we need to just keep moving. So yes, we have a Rolodex of engineers and consultants. We're always open to new consultants, but there's always a big risk in that conversation because we don't have a shorthand of working with one another. So there's going to be a learning curve in that process. And we always try to advise clients like, we'll use this specific consultant if you've used them in the past and you had a great experience. If it was like an okay experience, then there's no need to change the wheel. It had to be like, this dude is amazing, right? This consultant is, oh my God. And then it's like, great. And I want to meet him too. Like if you have somebody like that, I definitely want to meet him. But otherwise, we have a list of folks that are good. We try to keep 5 to 8 consultants on each trade try. The hard part is, you might work with somebody and like don't really like how they communicate or don't like how they talk to the field or don't like their bedside manner with a client. And it's like,
stuff.
You're good at what you do,
stuff.
but unfortunately, just from a client relations perspective, you're putting me in some really tough situations that I don't care to be involved with.
Yeah. How do you weigh that balance between being able to have good relationships with the clients while also like being really good at your job? Because obviously they work hand in hand. There's the emotional side and then there's the logical side, but you kind of need both.
You do. And so, like for us, both are required. Right. When somebody doesn't have one or the other, like they might be great with customer service, but not great engineers. You're out. Like that's just not going to happen. And then there's some engineers that we've worked with that are great engineers, but just poor communicators and like can't explain the challenges of whatever we're dealing with on site, like thoroughly or like in simple terms so a client can follow. Then it becomes like, unfortunately now we can't work with you because you require a translator. You require another extra step or 2 steps to get through this issue. So that's why we always encourage, like, if you could just use the people that we work with, it's the best. And like for any client, right, if your architect is telling you to use somebody, that's who you should use. Because if you don't like that engineer,
it flows for you guys better too, right?
Yeah, but also then that means you don't trust your architect either, right? If he's telling you that's who you want to use and you don't want to use that individual,
got to trust the process.
Yeah, you got to trust the process. And so that's the biggest challenge. I think is you got to have trust. And we live in this world. We've had clients where they, new clients, and they're like, well, we'd asked ChatGPT, and this is what they told us who we need to hire. These are the budgets, and so forth and so on. And so I agree, like, to some extent, what ChatGPT is saying is generally accurate, but it is not accurate to the specific area that we work in. So what I mean by that is, like, we need a structural engineer that has done work in the Palisades. We don't need a structural engineer that has offices all over the nation. They have an office in San Francisco, but could do work in LA. Like, it's just logistically not going to work.
Right.
There's inspections. There's just so much stuff and we have our own version of the California Building Code, the Los Angeles Code, Municipal Code. And so, like, everything's very specific. And so you really have to work with the folks that are here. And we get a lot of consultants that are coming up from San Diego, consultants that are coming out from Orange County.
Right.
And you could just imagine, like, 2 hours of traffic for a 15-minute site inspection. Economics.
It doesn't make sense.
It's not going to be a good economic financial model that's going to make sense. So you try to work with the folks that are generally in the area, and that are working there that where it makes sense.
Yeah. kind of have a feel for what's going on and how
Yeah,
things are
exactly.
evolving.
And what the city's looking for, like what are the neighbors doing? What are, because we're all learning, right? As we're going through this process, everybody's learning. The more projects you've done, the more knowledge you have. And so it's imperative that you're working with a team that's also learning and evolving and understanding.
Do you ever run into stuff with, random example, electrical engineers, and the technology is evolving so quick? So you bring up like home movie theaters, or different sound audio systems. And do you ever run into people that you've had in the past who maybe aren't keeping up with how rapidly the technology is evolving, and then you have to bring in some new people, and then it's like, okay, this person actually gets this?
100%. Yes. And so, and like, I think even for our consultants, we have our A tier, our B tier, our C tier, because like the A tier is using latest and greatest software, latest and greatest information for what the field is requiring. They're integrating everything really nice and smooth. They've worked with us.
Yeah.
So they're great.
So sometimes you don't need an A player if the project doesn't require any of the latest tech.
100%.
So you kind of got to allocate accordingly.
Exactly. Like say a client says, hey, Ignacio, lived in a nice simple
Very simple.
house.
Yeah.
I want my simple house back. Just want to make some tweaks. Keep it very basic. Great. We don't need to go hire the Ferrari of engineers to do this.
Right.
We can definitely get along or get away with
Some base hits.
Some very simple engineering systems. That's going to be enough to communicate to the field what is needed for pricing purposes, for construction purposes, and for the client. What we're getting right now is on the low voltage side is clients that are like, I just want to do it all in Alexa or Google. And it's like, whoa, that's a very decentralized system. Right. So like typically your home automation system or smart home system is a centralized system. There's brains that are in the house that communicate. Well, Alexa and Google they don't have that.
Right.
There's a series of small hubs throughout the whole space that control audio, visual, your doors, your equipment.
Right. What do you guys do in the work around that?
So we're working through that right now. That is not typical in our space. Our space, just because it's a little tricky, because who do I call or who does a contractor call when Google's not firing up or Alexa's not working?
AWS is down.
Like today, right?
Yeah.
AWS is down, right? Who do they call?
Right.
And so there's no low voltage specialist in those trades.
Right.
So like we're all kind of out in the Wild West in those spaces. Whereas if you go with a centralized system, oh no, we know exactly who to call. Oh no, you call this guy. He's going to pick up the phone. He's going to walk you through how to reset the system. If there's a programming issue, how to reprogram it, and or how to come up and do an update.
Those people that come on site and make those adjustments?
They come on site or they do it remotely, either one.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
So let's run through kind of the life cycle from start, which we already kind of tapped on, through the whole journey to finish, if we could kind of go rapid fire through it.
Yeah, for sure. So start the project, right? You need a soils engineer, surveyor, just to get started. You have your architect. You finish the design. At that point, huge critical component, interior designer. You need your interior designer, and then you're going to need your structural, civil, mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and landscape. You need all those just to get a...
Can you tap on where there's usually some hiccups too, some key points through the process?
For sure. Interior design.
Yeah.
Everybody looks at interior design like interior decorating. Like, oh, I'll just pick my curtains at a later time, or I don't know what rug I want. Like, we'll figure it out later. That's great. But we need to know exactly where your lights are going. We need to know exactly where all your sinks are going, all your appliances, all your electrical plugs that you need, any chandeliers, any pendants, like for sinks and plumbing fixtures, wall faucets, deck mounted, tubs, free floating, like
and how it flows throughout your life, right?
Because all of that gets tied into the house. So if you're like, oh, I don't know, I'm just going to put a tub here. Great. So is it drain in the center? Is it on the side? Is it in the
you
back?
Tell me.
I don't know. And like I can draw something. And a lot of times like just put something in for now. Great. I'll put a tub. I can put a tub. But like then they might want like a filler from the side or a filler from the top or a deck mounted item. And so these are all those decisions that the longer you wait to make that decision, there's a totally different system for like plumbing to, autofill your tub from the ceiling
Right.
than it is to fill it from the floor. It's a totally different machine. And so who determines that? The interior designers. And so they're not decorators. They're actually a critical component of
They're
this
almost
process.
engineers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're setting the inside of the house, like your bar. Everybody says, I want a bar. Great. What would you like in it? I don't know, ice maker, beverage center, sink. Awesome. So 6 feet, 5 feet,
Yeah.
7 feet. And ultimately it's like, it's okay, it's cool, don't worry about it. We'll just draw it in for now. But then as soon as we break ground, we're running those drain pipes and we need to know exactly where it's going.
Right.
Not kind of where it's going. Exactly. Because if that drain comes up in the wrong spot, we're going to have to redo it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where you get into like changes, change orders, delays, all that fun stuff. And I think a big threat in the Palisades is going to be delays because there's going to be a shortage of subs. And a sub is going to line up his projects like, I'm going to knock this house out in 2 weeks. Then I'm doing this one. Then I'm doing this one. Then I'm doing this one. Well, if he gets started on your project and then you have to start changing stuff, his people can't afford to just stand around.
Right.
So he's just going to go to the next project.
Then you're back in line.
And now you're either back in line or they're going to piecemeal you as they're going to the next one and coming back to help you. And so, again, super important to have your consultants and your interior designer. And then lighting. Lighting sounds so simple. It used to be very easy. Run a wire, hook it to a switch. And I don't know if...
How has that changed?
So, right, how does that change? Great question. You remember, like at least in my house, I have like a bank of like 7 switches, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right? It's this massive switch panel. Well, we don't do that no more. There's just one touch box. And so in each touch box, each control panel has like a little scenes. I have a cleaning scene. I have an entertainment scene. I have a TV watching scene. I have a good night scene, an away scene. And so that means that those wires are not just running into a simple switch. They're getting programmed into this.
Just creating an environment for everything.
And so then all those points have to then be centralized to something else. And so it is just complicated. And this is where like, could I do a line diagram? Yes, of course, I can absolutely do it. But am I really doing it correctly? I'm not.
Right.
So I advise clients all the time, like, I can spend this day or two setting this up, but in the end, this drawing was kind of worthless. What we need to do is bring in the person that's going to actually do it correctly so that they can turn around and bid it properly. Because, each one of those scenes costs money. And so, when you walk into your house, you turn on a switch, lights turn on. That's great. In today's modern homes or today's smart homes, like you want to have like path lighting and like mood lighting, and there's all these scenes. Well, all that costs more because it requires more equipment, more systems to make that all talk. Except for Google and Amazon, because they're their own little ecosystem that they're doing. And so these are those challenges. And so this is how you get a budget where you could be 20% more expensive, 25% more expensive than what you actually wanted to spend.
Right. And so you got to take initiative early.
Yep.
How long does the decision-making process look like for some of these things like lighting? Like, what do those meetings look like?
I think the hardest part is the meetings, they're tough because there's a lot of information. There's a steep learning curve. But I think that clients have to kind of rely on their experts. It's almost like, like you hired them for a reason, right? Like, hey, how do you recommend? And if that's the recommendation, you should follow that.
Yeah.
My worst nightmare is when a sentence starts with, I was talking to my friend.
Mm.
Oof.
Sometimes that
always-
friend's ChatGPT too.
Oh, yes. And so, like, that is always the toughest part, because I'm not saying their friend is wrong, but their friend's project or their friend's experience is totally different
Right.
than this house and this project specifically. And so it's always, like, I always preface it like, great, well, what does she build or he or she built? Like, you know,
Right.
what are they doing? If they're building a 20,000 square foot house and you're building a 5, like, you're not even in the same
Right.
stratosphere. So, or vice versa. If you're building a really big house and your friend did a remodel, like,
It's not the same.
it's not the same. And so, like, yes, you can chat, but in reality, you need to rely on your experts to guide you through this process, because they're the ones. Your team is who's aware of your schedule, your budget, the capabilities of the subs. Like, somebody who's going to do
Right.
Google Home might not need a really sophisticated AV guy, because really we're all learning together. But if suddenly it's going to change to a Lutron or a Crestron system, well, that's a totally
Right.
different sub, and we hired the wrong person. Now we got to pivot and go find somebody else. So
That adds delays, adds
delays,
costs.
cost, frustration,
Yeah.
and in the end, you know, the more something costs, the longer something takes, the longer it costs.
Right. Is there anything else that comes up that's notable after interior design, lighting, etc.?
No, from there, you know, then we're all working together
Yeah.
and with the contractor, and
Pretty good understanding of what the whole project's going to look
yeah,
like
and
at
then
the end of the
everybody's
day.
delivering their drawings, and then hopefully when you're getting your permit, the drawings are complete, you have a healthy budget, and now you're breaking ground.
Yeah. I love it. Well, yeah, super valuable information on the contractor side. I think there's for sure some stuff that clearly people might not be thinking about, and they should be. And it's good to take initiative early. I feel like
Yeah.
that's probably the main takeaway, and trusting your people, right? So
Exactly.
I think next show, let's go ahead and tap on some of the budget and cost stuff that probably correlates with a lot of the things we just tapped on.
Absolutely.
I love it.
Awesome, Kev.
Thank you.
Thank you.